And welcome everyone for another Let's Dev with Unity. Welcome to our live stream, and today is a very special one. We're going to talk about XR interactions and templates, and I'm joined by my favorite colleagues, the XR team at Unity. So we have with us co-hosting Antonia Forster, which is also a senior advocate at Unity.
Hiya.
We have Eric, which is a staff research scientist, Eric Provencher, also in Montreal. And we have Joe Grieve, which is senior software engineer, also from the XR team. So welcome everyone. Antonia, maybe you want to start by presenting yourself?
Yeah, so hello, I'm Antonia Forster. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior advocate like Manu. I specialize in VR, AR, XR, spatial computing, whatever you want to call it, and different immersive technologies. And yeah, so I do a whole combination of coding, building samples, building demos, projects, and doing a lot of educational content. I appear at a lot of conferences and events. So you may have run into me if you've been at XR events or Unite. And if you haven't, then I hope we bump into each other at some point soon.
Awesome. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, so I've been an XR developer for over 8 years now. I've started off focusing on games. I released a old Steam title as my first project and worked my way through the healthcare space doing simulation. Then found my way through the open source through my work with Microsoft with MRTK. And for the last over 4 years now, I've been full-time working at Unity to improve all of our tools. So I've been working on XRI for over 2 years now. And hopefully people appreciate that.
Yeah, I've been enjoying your tweets and following along. What about you, Joe?
Hey y'all, I'm Joe. Pronouns are he, him. I'm a senior software engineer at Unity. I'm currently focused on the VR multiplayer template, which I'm super happy to get to show to everybody today. I work on the XR team with Eric. I'm working on making the coolest and best fun XR interaction tools, and that's where we're at. I'm super excited to dive into it today.
Actually, this is a perfect timing because we have a new template VR multiplayer and the trailer should be playing right now. Let's go. So what are we seeing? Tell us, guys.
Yeah, so this is the VR multiplayer template. What it is, it's a super quick, easy way for anybody to jump into doing VR game development. Our core focus was just simplicity and ease of use and making sure that anyone anywhere can just make a VR multiplayer game and connect to anyone anywhere and at any time. And fortunately, we were able to leverage a lot of the core functionalities of Unity Gaming Services, XR Interaction Toolkit, and Netcode for Game Objects, and make some really great stuff. And we'll dive into it more in a little bit, but that's just a little quick little teaser for y'all.
Awesome. So our first section, and before we dive into it, I'll talk a little bit about the structure of this show. But basically, we have a first conversation around XRI. We'll be talking about the XRI at this moment. Some slides from Eric and some cool information there. Then we'll dive into VR multiplayer template, which is just showed before. And then at the end, Antonia is reserving some words about what happened this week because Monday was a very special day in the XR community, obviously. So stay tuned for that until the end of the stream. And yeah, so we'll get started, I think, with the first section, which is the XRI.
Yeah. So I've got some slides here to show you all. And hopefully we'll dive a little bit about like what XRI is if you're not familiar. So just to give you all an idea, XRI started off back in 2019, and it started off like really simply, just designed to do basic interactions. As you can see at the top, like we really came from a long far distance of just like visual presentation and interaction richness. And today XRI is capable of deploying to every XR build target that we support, and it heavily leverages OpenXR and all of our nice feature sets that we support with that. But it goes beyond it goes beyond just OpenXR. We support Vision Pro at this point, but importantly, it's the core of all of our templates at this point. And we've got mixed reality template, the VR template, the AR mobile template, and very soon the multiplayer template that we're going to support. And it's also a key part of all of our learn pathways.
I love this one with the smashing.
Yeah. The smashing is very nice. So I just going through a little bit about like, what all this is about, like because of all the modalities that we support, XRI is really intended to abstract a lot of the complexities that go into all the input richness that is involved in XR development. So with VR, you've got your controllers. Mixed reality, oftentimes you want to use your hands because you're interacting with the world a little bit more, so you can see that touching surfaces. Mobile AR is screen modality, so that's like a whole different world as well. And if you're doing mobile AR, you can also just do traditional flat screen as well. So that's with our support for pinch gestures. And VisionOS is a particularly tricky platform to build for because it like rethinks a lot about how input is handled, and it's done with it's done by having the OS do a lot of the interaction work that previously your app would do it for you. So that's something that we've put a sample out as well to support. So just to give you a high level of what XRI does, for you, it's really two key things, and it's these two parts that like work together. And one of them is the interactables, and on the other side you got the interactors. And it's basically you have an object, you take the input, that's your interactor going out and querying the scene, and the interactable is the object defining how that behaves to the input. So these two pieces together, they form like a really nice, rich piece of interaction. So with that said, I'm gonna hop into the editor, and we'll have a little view here of our brand new template. So the VR template's been around for a minute, but this just got updated. And if you haven't grabbed it already, you can go ahead on the Unity Hub and pull down the VR template with Unity 6 beta. So just so you know, you can actually use XRI 3, which is powering this template, all the way back to Unity 2021. But it's the officially recommended version is in Unity 6, and so with the template there, it's the version you're gonna get. So I downloaded
And for
this
everyone
this
that
morning.
is wondering, I actually just installed it before this stream and tested it myself. You open the hub, you go into your install, make sure you're using the latest Unity 6, not the beta, the actual preview one, and then you should be seeing the template, the VR core, and you can just install it and get going. Exactly what Eric is showing right now.
Yeah. So yeah, all this is included out of the box. So what is the scene like? What are you looking at here? So there's a collection of interactables here. So you can see there's like a bunch of them here. We got like our environment set up, and you got your XR origin rig. So like the key thing that you're going to be thinking about with XR is always your rig. And if you're not familiar so much with VR development, like there's a key thing that you have to know when you're building an XR app, especially in Unity, is that like your camera is controlled by the platform device. So like if you move your head, you're being tracked. You don't want to take control of that. So the way that we handle this is we have a rig that is above the camera, and that allows us to move the player around in the space virtually. So having that decoupling there is super important, and it also allows us to have a consistent space for all of our controllers and hands and other devices that are going to be a part of that rig that's going to move with the player around.
For anyone wondering, Eric, if you did move the head independent of the user's kind of real life head movement, what kind of impact would that have on the user?
Yeah, well, if you were able to do it, it would be extremely jarring because, like, you're kind of like, imagine like being disembodied, like having someone move your eyes for you. Like, it's just a very strange experience. But luckily, like, it would just get overridden. So, like, if you look here, we've got this track pose driver, and what this is doing is it's reading data from the input system with these input actions, and it's just applying the transform data right into the camera object. So you're not going to have a chance to kind of override it as long as this is there. If you did remove this, then you could move the camera around and you wouldn't have any head tracking at all, and that would be just the worst experience for users. So please don't do that. Yeah.
For tips.
We have a quick question in the chat. Someone is asking, what are the specific hardware needed for used here in terms of CPU, GPU?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have like core specs to be honest, but like I would follow, like if you're going to be developing in VR, a lot of the time people tend to use the MetaQuest Link, and with MetaQuest Link, you have to follow like what are the PCVR min specs, and I think like nowadays it's around like a 960 with like you don't need like the latest CPU, so just I would follow guidelines for what those are.
Awesome.
That said, you can build this template on any computer really. Like as if you're able to do phone development, you could build for that. You just won't be able to test live in the editor, and so iteration will be a little bit trickier. So be able to make builds, and deploy, and test. Yeah. Awesome. We actually have a device simulator, so I'm not going to use it here, but if we go into the package manager, And I'll just show you where the stuff is, because this is very important to know as well. So when you get XRI, like, this is your package, but some people might not know this, but there's this nice samples tab. So Unity packages tend to often have samples, and a lot of the times these are like really core pieces of like infrastructure that you want to like make use of. So in XRI, they're like a really important part, and we don't recommend anybody use XRI without having these starter assets imported. You can delete some of the stuff in it, but this is where your core prefabs are going to be. We have the input actions set up. A lot of really important utilities are in there. If you go down here, there's a device simulator, and you can bring that in. It gives you a prefab you can drop in your scene, and when you hit play, you're going to be using this to simulate the input. So if you want to work with that instead of having the actual link set up, like you can do that as well. You can see as well, we got other samples like the spatial keyboard. This is a new one that's a key part of the multiplayer template, and the Vision OS sample, which has quite a lot of dependencies because of complexity of Vision OS. But if you're targeting that platform, I recommend giving it a go. Yeah. You can see as well, this hand demo, I'll go through that a little bit later as well. So back to the scene. So let's take a look. Like if we open up this rig, like what do we got in here? So this looks a little funky. You got this collider here. So that's like part of the locomotion with the character controller. So you can see that over here. You got the body transformer stuff here. But the key parts here you want to look at are the left and right controllers. And you'll see that there's like this other part for the teleport. So this is stuff that's actually like a work in progress improving. So XRI 3, it's come a long way because we streamlined a lot of the interactor work. And that comes with like streamlining out, like we used to have a ray interactor and a grab interactor. And now we've condensed that into the near far interactor, and I'll get into that a little bit. But the teleporter, for now, it still uses the old ray interactor here. And so what we've got with this other game objects that allows us to stabilize the transform. So one of the key things you're going to run into with VR is that like input is quite shaky. Like you'll have a user, moving their hand, it's going to jitter a little bit. And because of that, you want to be able to mask that out. So we have this little transform stabilizer, but with the near far interactor, that's all kind of built in. So we got that with our casting. We've got some stabilization options in there. And we have this attach controller, which I'll get into a little bit as well. Which handles like the actual motion. So when you're moving your ray around, when you're grabbing objects, like there's a transform at the other end of that ray that is being stabilized as well. And so that's like kind of abstracted away from having these different transforms here. Yeah. With XRI, like there's really two key kinds of interactors that like, well, these two interactors here that are like the key parts of what like it means to interact with XRI, and that's poke and then there's like grabbing and raise. And poking is like a key part, especially with hand tracking. But when you're using a UI, like if you want that like nice diegetic feel of like going to touch a UI, so I'll go back to the scene here. I'll just close this out right here. Discard changes. So all of these UIs here actually do support both modalities of poking and raise. So if I zoom in a little bit, and I'll hop in the headset a little bit later to show you all what that looks like in practice. But like these buttons can be pressed. They've got some component in there. Oh, picker is not always the best.
And also big shout out to the design team at Unity that has been able to translate our 2D visuals to XR, and it's very consistent with the design system.
Actually, while we're talking about the visuals and the UI, you said the word diegetic. Do you mind explaining that for anyone who hasn't heard that before, Eric?
Yeah. So diegetic, it's a term that we use a little bit to kind of symbolize like things that like feel a little bit natural feeling, realistic feeling things. So like when you're grabbing an apple in real life, like you want that feel of like holding it, you want that like tactility of it. So we try to like bring that a lot into our VR concepts, when we're building interactions. And so poking is like it's a really key part, and that's actually been around not even that long in Unity's XRI history. So it's only been around for like about 18 months, 2 years now. And we brought that in. It took a lot of overhauling of how XRI is set up. And this might be a little bit in the weeds here, but there's something we have in XRI called the interaction group. And that's like really a key part of like how everything kind of ends up playing nicely together, because when you're using interaction in XR, like you have these different interactors and they're all kind of firing off in the scene doing stuff at the same time. but you need to make sure that like they're kind of respecting what the user's intending to be doing in a given moment. Like you want to make sure that like you're not like shooting off array when you're trying to poke something. So the interaction group, what it ends up doing is it ends up like looking, it has these different, like logic pieces in there that handle this, but it's basically like just looking through like a list and kind of doing a priority sort through like, okay, is the poke trying to do something? We should give it priority, because poking, if you're up close, like you probably want to be doing that. And then if it's not doing something, then we'll like fall back and let the other interactors do their thing. So that's the reason why when you approach a UI panel with your hand, the rays are going to turn off automatically. Or when you approach an object that you're going to grab and pick up, like also happens. And your poke is not trying to activate things as well. And everything is kind of like, it feels like it should. Like you're going to go pick up something, it's going to work the way you expect it. So that's the key part of the interaction group there.
So to recap, you've got interactables, which are on the object. You've got interactors, which are normally your hands or your controllers. And then you've got interaction groups, which kind of decide which interactors, how they should interact with each other, whether you're doing a poke or a pinch. And then you also mentioned the interaction attached controller. I think you mentioned it.
Yeah, we'll get into that one. We'll get into that one. That can get a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces here. Yeah, it can get a little bit in the weeds there. There's a lot of denseness to these components, and be overwhelming if you're not familiar with what's going on. Let's hop back into the slides just to kind of give you a little idea of like what's going on here. So we went through a little bit of our direct and poke. There's also the interaction manager, and this is actually a nice little slide to show how that works a little bit. But basically, the interaction manager's job is to like make sure that everything works correctly, so it orchestrates all of this chaotic motion of like interactors, interactables, all this stuff. And there's also like filters, input events, there's all this stuff going on. So the interaction manager handles that. And what's nice is that when you're writing something in Unity, like you make a script, you're gonna tend to write like an update loop, it'll run through. The thing with update loops in Unity is that they kind of run, chaotically. They're not, you don't know when one is gonna run before another. You can add these like execution orders, but it gets a little bit tricky. What's nice with the interaction manager is that we have like deterministic order. So like your interaction manager is going to be the thing going through each object and calling process. And there's multiple phases in a frame that you'll go through. So you'll have like, a pre-process and a process. So you'll be able to like handle, before and after, processing objects to make sure that like, you're getting your targets and what objects you're going to be selecting when you're going to pull the trigger. Yeah. So I just went through a little bit of mediation.
Big question, Eric.
Yeah.
How easy it is to integrate these interactions or mix and match them with things like AutoHand? Any tips or workflows for that?
Yeah. So AutoHand, I haven't personally used it. I know a lot of folks on the Discord tend to use it. So if you did want to integrate something like that, what you would be able to do is actually rely on these interaction events. So these are interaction events that happen on the interactor, but the same exist on the interactable as well. So when you grab an interactable, you'll know like, okay, like it's been hovered, it's been selected, and what like the first one and the last one are released, you get these events here. And if you were to have AutoHand, you would basically plug into these. You can write a script that calls into them programmatically. And you'll know, okay, so this totem arch object was grabbed, and you can know through the arguments of the event which interactor grabbed it. And with that as well, through the interaction manager, you can go ahead and grab like the handedness. You can know what's going on, but like each interactor now as of 3.0 also, it'll tell you like if I go up, sorry, you'll know like which hand grabbed it too. So with the handedness and which object you've got, you can pose the hand and like arrange it around the object, and you can do what you need to be doing. So you can integrate that. We really want to make sure that like XRI, there's a lot of complexity here, but like we want to make sure that every part of it is like extensible, that you can build off of it and you can work through it, and kind of just build the app that you need to be building and not just the app that we're kind of providing for. And as a proof of that, if you're familiar with MRTK, which I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, Microsoft started out and now it's like a cross-company effort. They build their whole framework on XRI because they believe like it's a good baseline framework to be building on for handling all the complexity of input and the orchestration of all these interactors, filters, interactables. Yeah. here, let's just go back a little bit. There's one thing that I wanted to go through. So, we were mentioning the attach transform, like what that is. This slide is really important because it explains like a key part of like what it is to grab an object. And that's something that like it seems simple on the surface, but like there's actually a few parts here. So like when you grab an object, your hand, it has like poses on it, so you got like you got like an aim pose if you're actually using hand tracking, you got like your grip pose. But you when you actually go ahead and take the object, you want to have like an offset that is like, associated with where you grab the object on, right? So you're not just grabbing it from the center. If you just take the object's transform, you're just gonna get the center of the object. So you need to be able to like offset that and like hold it. If you grab it by like a handle, you want to make sure that you're still holding it by the handle and you move around and that stays consistent. So the way that's accomplished is with attach transform. So on the interactor side, there's an attach transform, and on the interactable side, there's one as well. And when the moment the grab actually happens, there's a link that occurs. It's like a pseudo link, but these two transforms tend to be synced up. And so the interactable's attach transform is kind of try to line up with the interactor's one. So back to the near far interactor. So there's a few parts here. So we've got like the near far interactor is the thing that like is the interactor itself, and that's going to handle, input. So we'll dive into that a little bit, but just to give you an idea there. There's this attach controller. And what this is doing is when you actually grab the object and you're pulling your hand forward or back, you're moving the attach transform, and the object that is on the other end that's being selected is going to move with it. And this allows us to like, add gestures, so we can like push and pull, and this are the configurations for that. And so that's the like key thing of like how you move the object. You can overwrite this. So what's nice with XR3, if you're an avid programmer, you've run into interfaces before. And all of these fields here, like all these components that are part of the interactor, they're all interfaces, and you can just overwrite them with something else if you feel like you want to implement it in a different way.
Very customizable.
Yeah.
Yeah, super extensible too.
Yeah. And so what's really nice, and this is a key thing that like let us build the Vision OS support, is that so I mentioned like valid targets earlier. So when you go ahead and like hover over an object, so you're like selecting something. So in the editor, this is like a picking process. In XRI, like in an XR, you have a ray that shoots out and it'll like highlight this object. We're like, okay, like how do I know I want this object and not like the one behind it or the one like in front of it, or like, why not this one? Like why does it have to be this one? You shoot a shoot ray, but like, why isn't it this object that it was hovered? So you have a process where you go ahead and you cast out into the scene and you get targets and you want to sort them. And that process, in the past, it was very like coupled to like the interactor. And if you wanted to change it, like you had to go ahead and like really override that whole functionality. But with XRI3, what's really nice is these casters are separate components, and you can go ahead and like change what the caster is doing for the sphere. So when you're nearby, you're doing a sphere cast, and when you're far, you're doing a curve cast. And this is like just the logic that like returns like which colliders I'm looking to interact with. And yeah, and as I mentioned on Vision OS, the OS handles that in shared space. And what's great with this is that I can implement my own here that just queries the OS to return those targets instead of having a sphere cast or like a ray cast or something to go ahead and grab the objects.
So one of the reasons that's crucial is that with the older XR interaction toolkit, correct me if I'm wrong, it used physics casters, right, for the interactions, and those don't work with Vision OS because on the Apple Vision Pro, that detection and selection of objects and highlight all happens on Apple's end. So there's really no way to accommodate that with the old XR interaction toolkit. So the Nearfar interactor kind of solves for that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, you can still cast in the scene, but like as you mentioned, like the OS will handle like hovering and do all this stuff, and if you want to like make sure that like you're aligning with what the OS is doing, that's when you have to like respect it, because if you say like, oh, I'm gonna raycast this object, but then your eye gaze is hovering something else, like we don't know which object your eye gaze is hovering because of Apple's privacy model. So like you need a separate caster to be able to go ahead and hook into it. And they might have some rich system in the back that does a lot of this stuff too, and you don't want to redo the work twice either. So let's you go ahead and do that. Yeah, so those are the casters, the interaction attach controller. Now here's like a really nice other part here. So input configuration. So what we've done here in the past with XRI, if you've used XRI 2 or 1 in the past, like what we had is on the root of this object, there was this like controller object. So you still see there's like an action manager, and I'll get to what that does too. But the controller component, it would basically have all of these input values set up for it. And the tricky thing with that is that it would be like you needed your interactor to rely on that object to have all of the input polling for you, and you couldn't customize it like on a per object. And what's nice with this is that now like we have these input readers, and you can use an input action, and you only use the ones that you need for your interactor, and you can actually change it to use like a different one. Like I can go ahead and grab like any input action that's defined in my map, or I can do manual value, so I can just have a hard-coded editor value, or I can do object reference, and I can define my own button reader interface implementation and have my own input. And this is useful especially for platforms that you might be trying to target that maybe they don't integrate with the input system, or maybe they're doing something custom, or maybe you have some weird setup where like you're doing some proxy interaction where you have an object that's controlling another object. All that's like a lot more possible now that like you don't have to rely on the input controller. Just undo that. Yeah, so that's like the basis there. There's like a lot of components and stuff, but another part of this here is the line visual. So this is another thing that we kind of re-implemented here. And what's great with this is that like we have all these settings that are visible when you're highlighting something and you're interacting with something, that will like control the lines. You have gradients. You want to smoothly interpolate between these things. So this is all like handled for you now. There's some advanced properties if you want to go into and change like a lot of the customization there. Like this object, it's designed to kind of take what is the nearfar interactor like pointing at, and then draw a line from the controller to that point and make it curve. So like sometimes you're gonna grab the object and it's gonna have different smoothness and such. So you want to be able to react and bend the line so that it feels like it's always tethered to the object, and that's what that line visual is intended to do there. So it's all dynamic, very easy to use. And what's great as well is that this is also like it uses interfaces. So like the nearfar interactor, it doesn't know that the line visual is there. You can implement your own, pull the same data that this one's pulling from, and build your own solution to this. So everything's modular. That's the key tenet of this stuff. And yeah, I'll just hop over to some of these objects here, just to show you that. And then once I go through those, yeah, I keep picking the wrong thing here.
I mean, it's a packed template. There's a lot to play with.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all interactable, grab interactables in the scene that you can interact with. And let's dive into like a little bit like how they're set up. So grab interactable is like a big component as well. Like it's got a lot to it, and at runtime it'll also do some stuff. And I'll show you, like if I grab this one here, this one's configured for 2 hands, so it's got this extra component here. So XRI is designed to make grab interactions really customizable as well. And the way that we do that is by having these transformers. So if you look at if you ever look through what are these transformers here, you can define your own. And what this does is it allows you to define based on the input of the interactor, where the object's going to move in the frame, what's its target position. And then once it receives that, the grab interactable is going to go through all the transformers and apply the position depending on whether or not you're tracking different things. So if I uncheck rotation, then no matter what rotation I set in the transformer, it's just not going to apply it. Same for scale, position. And when you have these different movement types as well, big physics objects, they can move in different ways. So if you want to just have instantaneous motion, it just basically 1-to-1, whenever you update, you're going to move there. Kinematic is basically doing kinematic motion. So you're applying it on fixed update, but it's a kinematic transform. Rigid body. And velocity tracked, it basically computes velocity and angular velocity to spin and push the object around, so that as you're moving through the scene, it will just kind of slap objects around and kind of trail along, and it will be really a physics object in the scene.
Are there any pros and cons of those different movement types, or examples where you might want to use one and not the other?
Yeah, so my two favorites are instantaneous velocity tracking. If you have an object that you need to behave I mentioned diegetically, so you have an apple in the scene, and if you throw the apple, you want it to hit other stuff in the scene, you want to be using generally velocity tracked. It either way though, when you release the object, it's like a rigid body, it'll behave the way it behaves, but it's if you're moving through a scene and you want like your object to slap everything around or get stuck on the wall or something like that, like velocity tracking is what you want. Instantaneous is lower latency though, so like it's a lot smoother. It's going to be exactly where you want it. Like velocity tracking needs to compute a velocity, apply it, and you got to wait for the updates on the physics engine to run through so that you'll be moving. So there's a little bit extra latency there.
So if you were doing something with a lot of dexterity and very precise positioning, like a puzzle or balancing or something, maybe instantaneous might be a better fit.
Right.
But if you did a kind of, I don't know, you're carrying a sword around and you want to whack everything, maybe velocity tracking is kind of more fun for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's right.
This is actually connected to a question I just saw. So someone was asking, can you lock the rotation to a single axis?
Yeah, so we have an example of that actually. It's not like kind of a core part of this, but let me open this up and I'll show how that works. So I'll just open the scene here. Yeah. So this table here, this is the hands demo scene. So this is one of the samples that we ship with XRI. So this got this like this table handle, and the table handle it's got this extra transformer on it. So I mentioned transformers, you know, you can have multiple of them. So this one here, it does the normal transformation, and you can lock like axes for position. But if you want to lock the rotation, we have just a simple script here. It's in the samples, and you can just say like what axes of motion you want to allow. And when once it computes the rotation, it'll then compute, you know, what is allowed rotation. And what the script does is it'll just snap back to the original rotation for those axes when it's not permitted. So what this does in practice is that this object, when I grab it, it will only move it'll only rotate on the y-axis, and it won't tilt and like roll, which is really nice. So yeah, so this is a script you can grab. It's part of the samples. If I open that up here, right there, and the starter assets. Actually, it's part of the starter assets. It's not even the hand demo scene, but it's used in the hand demo scene. So yeah.
So this is a nice example because the user can kind of reposition the table at whatever height they need, but there's not really a scenario where you want the user to like tilt the table or tilt it forward or backward. So yeah, good example for this.
Yeah. This scene as well, like, is nice because it shows like really near field interactions. So you've got like you know, this UI components you can grab and poke here. You got like this push button here, and you got these pokeable chess pieces that you can squish and move around. This little socket that you can push in there to show that part of the interactions. Yeah, sockets are interesting actually. Just on the topic there, they're kind of they're a rare case where it's like an inanimate interactor in the scene. Like a socket, all it is really is just like an interactor that, like, when you hover it, like when you put an object through, it'll try and grab it, and basically if you're still holding it, it won't do anything, but if you release it, it'll snap into place. And there's a few customizations there for that. But yeah, it's just a really simple, like, you're just grabbing object as they go. There's also some like hover socket snapping, which is enabled here in this scene, and that means it'll just like move the object. So basically what that does is that it will add a transformer onto this object while you're holding it, and then kind of override what your hand's trying to do with it until like you kind of leave its like zone, and then it'll like remove that transformer and let it follow your hand again. So it's a little bit of a trickery with that, but yeah, that's the power of transformers and overriding stuff.
All really great assets for a project.
So we'll go back to the sample scene here, and just a reference, by the way, there is this other scene here, the basic scene. This is part of the template as well. It's like a really basic you know, basic scene, just showing like bare minimum, like what do you need in a scene like to do basic VR work, and it's really just your rig. You got the interaction manager because we got interactors on here, event system for UI work if you need. We don't have any of those in the scene, but yeah, just bare minimum, like if you want to just get going. You don't want any of our samples in there. It's just a good little pre-set up scene for you. Yeah. So yeah, back to the scene here. So this object. Okay. So we were just talking about grabbing objects, you know, what are the different, you know, ways of locking position and stuff like that, motion types. Back to this one here. So this one, what's interesting is that, so it's got a select mode of multiple. So this is an option that you've got on your interactables, where you can decide, okay, do I want like two hands to be able to touch it, or do I want like only one? And if it's one, single mode, what's going to happen is if you grab it with the other hand, it's going to overwrite that hand, so you're going to steal it from the other hand. With multiple, it's going to like it's going to preserve like which one's being held. And if you have this general grab transformer on it, It's customized to be able to like handle all things like scaling, so you can enable two-handed scaling, and you can add some options for that. Add some scaling multipliers. You can and you can also have like just the rotation and logic. So this actually like took a lot of work to get to something that feels pretty good, and I'm pretty pleased with where we're at in XRI 303, which is this version here.
Yeah, it's a great update.
Yeah. So what's nice with this is that you'll grab objects, and I'll show this in practice when I put on the headset as well. But like it's following your hand. So you got one hand is kind of the dominant hand controlling the object, and the other hand is kind of tilting where the object's going to go. So you kind of want to like align it with that vector between the two hands. So it, just a good way to think about how this works is like, imagine you're holding a broom in your hands. And when you like tilt your hand down with the broom, like, you know, you want the like object to like the object is going to follow like where your other hand is kind of tilting, and like as you're holding that broom. And the way that it works with this though is that only the the first grab hand will like control like it's like tilt and rotation. The other hand is just there, like if you tilt your hand, it's not going to like rotate the object, but it will just like reposition it. So like that's kind of how it's set up there.
It's tricky because I guess in real life you just physically can't turn your hand. If you're holding a broom, this hand can't, but you know, we can't force you to not turn your hand. So how do you kind of translate that to VR? So I think this is done in the best possible way.
Well, I mean, we do what we can, right? Not everything's perfect, and you know, like as I mentioned, like this is a transformer. It's like an interface. You can, if you don't like how it works, like you can change it. But the thing that's really tricky with VR in general when you're grabbing an object like this is, you know, we don't have any haptics preventing you from moving your hand in a way that we don't want you to move it, right? Like when you're holding a physical object, there's that physical constraint. Like you can't move your hand through because the laws of physics prevent you from doing that. But like in VR, like your controllers can be decoupled from what you're actually physically doing. And it's a good example when you have an object that is set up to like use velocity tracking, because when you try and like push it through a wall, like it's gonna stop. So like even though like the target position is well past the wall, like if you're pushing your hand forward, like it's gonna get stuck on the wall because the physics engine prevents it from doing that. We can't apply the same to your physics hands, like although again like Boneworks will do that for you, and like everything is you know decoupled there, and your input is like not really like your input is inspiring the motion of your character, but it's not like directly driving it, right? So there's a difference there.
I think it's something worth considering when people are new to XR development, that these are all sort of, I guess, design considerations. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And I say it depends on your use case. So if you had a hose, maybe you would want the second hand to kind of change it, because it's an interface, you could change that. But with a broom, obviously that would, you know, not be appropriate. And I think for most rigid body objects, that just wouldn't be appropriate. So there's a sort of default way of doing it. And then maybe for your particular use case, you'd want to customize that or change that. So you've got all those options, but it is interesting building for XR versus media where you're not using your hands. It's quite different.
Yeah. I'll say as well, like when you're really going full physics driven, like where everything is kind of powered by physics, like there is like an inherent unpredictability layer, because like you know, physics engines can be, you know, like surprising sometimes. You might have something that will break in a weird way, and it takes a lot of really careful work to really tame it and make sure that it's doing exactly what you want. And with VR on top of it, like you've got inputs that can go all over the place. You got like poses that like if the person drops their controllers on the floor, you know, their controllers are well beyond where their arms can reach, right? But then what do you do with that? Like, do you like stretch the arms out? Do you like let it fall and like release them, or clamp the distances? Like there's a lot of considerations there.
I've seen some great examples in sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was saying in the industry we call that unintended fun.
I've seen some great examples where people are like, for example, in VR chat or other spaces where they're kind of taking off their headset and they put it down and they put the controllers down, and the avatar sort of stretches out to have like, you know, insanely long arms and head, and or the head goes through the legs. And so, yeah, it's definitely a consideration.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what you want, all power to you, you know, it's everyone's app is their own. It's the power of Unity. Like people build whatever they want, you know, like we're not the boss of you. Like this is the editor. Like you can go ahead and do what you want.
We have someone asking, is this software for free on the free side of Unity, or do you need to pay for it?
Yeah, so XRI is a free package part of Unity. So if you go ahead, like I was mentioning, go in the package manager, XR Interaction Toolkit. It's just a free package that we ship with the editor. And as I you know, if you go through the hub and you open this up, you're gonna find it as well in there. It's the VR template, so it just ships with all versions of Unity. So if you grab Unity 6, you grab the latest VR template, you're gonna have this right there. It's all there included out of the box.
You can do it right now while you watch if you like.
Yeah, if you're interested, yeah, absolutely, follow along. Yeah. So we went through some of these options with the grabbing. We went through what the interactors are doing. We talk a little bit about locomotion. So that's like a topic a lot of people are really interested in as well. So locomotion, there's a few key parts there. We support a few modes. So we got, you got your turning providers, you got your movement providers, and teleportation is one. You got grab move, which is an option as well. Climbing, I'll show you a little bit about that as well. So we got a lot of options here. In XRI 3, we wanted to make it so that it's easy to build your own transform provider. So your own locomotion provider. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. As we had the other one was a mediator. So like just like interactions, there's like a mediator for locomotion as well. And all this applies to a character controller that's like a part of the rig here. So this uses the default Unity character controller. So there's a lot of different pieces here. Locomotion is a little tricky to really fully wrap how this all works, and a part of that is because input is tricky in XR, because you want to be able to handle if I'm grabbing an object, I want my input to be directed on that, but if I'm trying to locomote, I want my locomotion to take precedence and not grab. So this is why this controller input action manager exists. And if you're trying to enable smooth turning, I had a question the other day. I was like, oh, I can't enable smooth turning because it's disabled. It's because there's locomotion settings on this object. So this script is turning off input actions directly. So based on what your interactors are doing, so if you're holding something, it might turn off different settings, or you can turn this one and you'll have smooth turning. And if you go back, if I'm back here, this you got smooth motion and so smooth turn, but by default snap turning. Snap turning is a lot more comfortable if you're new to VR. Really recommend using just snap turning. So locomotion, what's basically happening is as you go through what you want to interact with. So if you're pushing the stick and you want to do your move provider, what's going to happen is you'll be listening to the inputs. You're going to look for the camera for how the forward direction is determined. We got options to whether you ignore gravity or don't, flying or not. So if you want to no clip through the world, that's an option. We have different options for whether you go hand or head relative, depending on which hand is going on. And what this does is it'll basically take your input, compute where it wants the user to be going, and then it will ask the body transformer to follow through and make that motion. So it'll basically queue up some changes. The body transformer will take that into consideration and then apply it to the character controller. So it's this little queue of changes and of changes you want to do. It's a lot of pieces here, but the nice thing is that it makes it really easy to just I want to just go ahead and make a script that does my custom locomotion. Joe was telling us the other day, he was experimenting in spare time, working on some new funky locomotion. I don't know if you want to just mention words on that, Joe.
I mean, it's TBD, so we'll just leave it. It's kind of a personal project, but it might roll into some core functionality. We'll see.
We'll see. But it's just a fun thing that he's taking that in his spare time, experimenting, and just without having to completely change everything. You just write in your script, you experiment, and you're off to the races. That's a core thing that we want to inspire folks with XRI. There's a lot of complexity in XR development, but we want to take away a lot of the core pieces of it and just let you work on the parts that you want to work on. And go for that.
I will say, actually, on that note, though, I did have to override some of the providers, and it's super, super easy. For anyone who has programming experience, it's very doable, and don't feel intimidated by it. You might open it up and be a little bit intimidated, but it's not. It's very easy to override and extend on. It's built that way specifically.
Yeah. Well, we try to make it so that you don't ever have to override, but sometimes you do if you want to go real custom, and that's something that is totally supported. Everything, we try to make sure that we expose almost everything in the code, so you can go ahead and see how things work, poke around. What's great with this as well is if I go through the package, if I go through here, these are all the packages. I don't know if you ever opened this folder, by the way. If you're looking through this, it's nice. You can see everything that's installed right now. There's a lot of stuff here. And an interaction toolkit is right here. And what's great is that all the source code is just right there. You can go ahead and poke through and see how it works. So if you want to you see this and make changes. You can actually, it's possible with Unity to like take a package and bring it into your project separately, uninstall it from here and install it like from disk. So if you were to like go in package, do like install from disk, so there's an option to grab that. You can just put this outside of your folder, iterate on it, and you can make your own version of XRI that like forks it off and like does whatever you need to be doing. And just uses that. So like all the sources there, you can play with it. And yeah, so it's one of the nice things about this package. I think we don't try to hide any of the source from you. So go
Yeah.
ahead and build
And
what
a
you build.
quick message for the people watching. We do have team members in the chat, so don't freak out if we cannot answer every single question. We have people taking notes, and also any feedback that you have that is not a question, feel free to share it in the comments. We're taking notes. The moderators are adding that to our list of backlog. And also shout out to Valim that is in our chat right now watching us. Amazing tutorials from
Oh,
his YouTube
nice. I
account.
love Valum.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's done some
I
great
like
work.
love
Thanks,
Valim.
Valim. Yeah,
Hey.
that's great.
There we go, let's keep going.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good time. This is gonna be a live setup here, so we're gonna try and do this. So hopefully this works okay.
Ooh.
Are the demo
Good
gods gonna be with us, or is it gonna
luck.
break?
on,
So
everyone.
we'll hope for the best here.
Let's go.
Everyone in the chat, pray for us.
Got a black
Being quite
screen
daring
up
this
there,
morning, aren't we?
so Not the
Yeah.
best start here. Hold on, let's see.
I love doing
Get
live
this.
XR demos on stream.
Oh well, this is.
I guess you should have installed the device simulator, Eric.
Oh man. Well,
It's
let
okay.
me-
It's okay.
I'll put this to see.
I'll show a little bit of device simulator during VR multiplayer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
At the very
We have multiple
This is a
demos
real
lined
shame.
up. So
Yep. Yeah, so Joe is doing the VR multiplayer template right after that, guys. So
Alright,
Stay
let's,
tuned.
let's try here. Okay, well, I'm having technical difficulties, unfortunately, with this, so this is a real shame. But Joe,
Oh, there you
I'll
go.
let
You're in. You're in now, Eric. You're
Hey!
good. You're good.
Spoke too soon.
Okay, let's try this.
I think that's the beauty of
Let's
XR, right? It's like
It works.
that's
and
the
then it
real
doesn't.
part of the development, that
It's been a
Yeah.
little wild.
the
west
reality that no
in the
one
best way
talks about,
possible.
but it's a lot
Uh-huh.
of trials and errors.
anyone here who's
Oh,
an
man.
XR dev will know that there's there's a lot of fun in it.
Okay.
There's a lot of poking about, especially when you're doing it on stream in front of an audience. That's always the
Of course.
the time when, if anything can go wrong, it will.
I will get this working. This is rebooting right now because the headset froze down. So
No, we had it.
it's okay. We'll get it. We'll get it working. We'll get it working.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other questions we can maybe go through while this is booting up. If there's anything you want to pull up.
Yeah. So someone in the comments saying, "Thank you for doing this. You are all awesome." Hey Valim. Someone else saying, "Keep it up. Love you all.
Oh.
Thank you
Great.
for the hard work you're putting to make the Unity XR toolkit so great." That's from Valim himself.
Oh.
That's great.
Lucas saying exciting. So yeah, people are happy even though we have some difficulties.
I've got a
Alright.
question, Eric. So you mentioned climb as a teleportation. Sorry, as a locomotion method.
That's right. Yeah.
What kind of enhancements are there to the climb locomotion in XRI 3.0?
So we actually supported Climb a little bit before XRI 3, but the setup is just like streamlined with the code base. I'll do a little demo of this actually. There is actually one thing that is a little bit improved. It's basically teleport climb. So basically when you're pointing your controller at a ladder, say you're like a little queasy, you're like, I don't really want to be climbing this, like it doesn't feel good. You can point your controller up and just skip the whole climbing part and just continue on. And if you've played Half-Life Alyx, that's something that was supported there. And so we wanted to take inspiration from that and make sure that your apps can do that as well.
Yeah,
Let's see
it's
here.
great if you get really into your XR gaming and you don't want to come out, but you start feeling queasy, you don't want to quit the game. So
All right. Let's
the streamline
Send.
process.
I've got link connected, so hopefully we'll
Let's
be
do
able to show that
this.
off. So this is the starter asset scene, by the way. Searching for device. Just reboot that up. Sorry about this. Is that
On the climb teleportation, I'll just add for the viewers as well. So you can teleport up and down ladders, and I think there's also multi-anchor volumes now, so you can select teleportation points either with your head or with your eye gaze. So
right.
depending on your platform, that means you can kind of look to where you're going, or you can kind of move your head position towards where you want to go and select your teleportation point in kind of those multimodal ways. So yeah, I'm super excited to kind of implement that
There
in
we
my own demos.
go.
Nice.
Oh, well, hold on, my controller's
After
there.
my short segue, we're in.
All right, there we go. We're good.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, so
Woohoo.
this is the starter asset scene. Just what I was talking about here. You can go ahead and like hold it, and then boom, I'm up here. I can hop to that teleport anchor, hop down. This one. The reason that one didn't work, by the way, is that there is a max distance on the raycast, so it's 10 meters. So that's just something to note. You can customize that. I'm moving around with my left hand here. So if you look here, we animated. This is one of the nice improvements actually in XRI 3 is all the controllers are animated now with a nice little,
So good.
little transform motion with the input. So yeah, you can go over to an object like this. You can poke it. So this is the poke interactor. We got, grabbing objects from afar. So this is a setting on interactables where you can determine how you want the far select to behave. So this one, it's basically snap to the hand. This one over here, it'll stay in place there. So there's two different ways to kind of interact with it. And you can see the rays like curving nicely, following the object. So that's all customizable as well. And now what's nice with XRI 3 is I can go ahead and pull this object in here like this with a nice gesture. And this is two-handed support as well. So I can go ahead and manipulate it like this.
Which is awesome, by the way, for hand tracking.
Nice.
For anyone who's not
Yes.
familiar, being able to grab an object and just pull it in, it solves a lot of problems.
What's nice as well, if you look at the ray, when I don't interact with objects, the ray kind of contracts here, and it has like a little resting distance. And if I'm selecting an object, it'll reappear. But if I like look at stuff that's not interactable, it'll kind of stay idle. So it tries to get out of the way when you're not interacting it. This is customizable as well. You can change like a threshold for like how long it waits before it goes back, or you can change like the default idle distance. It's all customizable in the
We
visual
have
controller.
Div Karen in the comments saying, I've been using XRI from past last year, already shipped one project with it. This tool
wow.
is really amazing. Can't wait to test XRI 3.0. Great job, guys.
That's great.
Well, you can
Oh,
come
amazing.
today, Div. Just do it.
Yeah, you don't have to wait.
Yeah.
That's the great news.
Yeah,
You can do it
and the
really
template
truly
has
now.
this all set up for you. Yeah, it's
And
no
congrats on
training
launching
required.
projects.
Yeah,
Big
congratulations.
step. That's huge.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
amazing.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Not a
Shipping
small
is
feat.
always the hardest part, for sure.
Finishing
I can attest to that.
something also.
Yeah.
So UI is a little bit of a tricky subject in XR, and it's honestly, I'll be frank, it's not at the place that I would love it to be. As a developer, I have like high standards myself, but the thing that's a little tricky with UI in XR is that basically there's two different input systems going on. There's like you got like the XR's like loop for the event system. Sorry, not input system. It's like you got event system. So you got the XR interaction manager doing its own events, and then you got the UI system kind of doing its events. And the tricky thing is that the UI system is not something that we can like control programmatically. It's kind of doing its own thing, and it comes back and tells you like, oh yeah, no, we're interacting with that. And the tricky thing there is that like you want to be able to like control things. Like, so here's an example here. So if I'm like hovering this object here, like I can't like exactly know, like it's gonna still hover objects in the background, and that's like a tricky thing that I like. It's a little bit unfortunate, but that's because like we can't like know deterministically in the order, like okay, like this object's being hovered, so I want to block it because it can happen in different frames. But then if I push this object behind, like that object, I can't interact with it because the UI, like I know that this frame, like the UI's in charge, so the UI like blocks this interaction here. So that's a nice little thing there. Yeah, so that's a little note on that. I'm gonna switch scenes here, so I'm gonna.
Can I ask
gonna
about the
move over.
tunneling? Because I think the users are.
Oh,
you know,
yes.
it's quite
Yes,
visible, so I just want to address
Yes. Yeah, the tunneling is an option here that we've got. So in the scene. So so we'll go through the rig here and actually I haven't looked.
I believe it's under the
tunneling in a
main
while.
camera.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, that's right.
derail
That's
you
right.
there.
There you go. No, it's all good. Yeah, there
It's
you go.
important. My mom
Thanks, Joe.
needs it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
look.
honestly,
Not
I
put a
love
headset
tunneling
without
myself. So you've got like basically the way this works is that it's like a little setting. If you look at like, actually it's hovered right now. It's like this half sphere that's kind of on the object here. And what it's doing is like it's basically easing in and out, and based on it, like what the providers are doing. So when the locomotion providers are doing stuff, like it will activate and like kind of ease in and out. You can turn this off if you don't like it. It's just a prefab that you can just remove. But yeah, we think like tunneling is something that adds a lot of comfort to most people, and it's nice to have as an option. If you don't if you don't want to use it yourself, like just give people an option to turn it on. I'm someone who
Like
actually
an
uses
accessibility setting, but
Yeah.
quality of life.
Yeah,
at
definitely.
scale.
Yeah, not everyone's the same. Your level of comfort might be higher than someone else's, and Sometimes tunneling doesn't even cut it. You need like other tools, and we don't have like good examples of more advanced comfort options, but like that is something you can do. Part of it comes down to locomotion. Like if you're like using pure physics locomotion and flinging through the scene, you know, at high with velocity change with acceleration, that's something that makes people tends to be uncomfortable. But you know, our locomotion providers out of the box, they use, when you use move, it's like a linear speed, so you're always at the same speed. When you release, you're going to stop. Like that's super important for comfort as well. Yeah.
Another thing with the tunneling vignette is you can enable it for specific locomotion types. So let's say you know climbing makes somebody really queasy, you just enable it for climbing, or continuous movement, or smooth turning, whatever you want. You can just enable that for those specific locomotion types, which is really nice. Another thing is you can control the color, so you can do cool effects like change it to red to have it be a damage effect, for example, or you know, go nuts. You can do anything you want.
Blue if you're being teleported by magic.
There you go. So that thanks Joe for that. So I'll just hop in this scene just to show you a little bit of that, because this is a much nicer scene than the other one. The other one is meant to be super minimal, so that like you can work with that, but not have to worry about like having something too heavy in your project. This is a template, so the template has more stuff in it. So you can see these UIs are much nicer here in the scene. You got our little drop downs. I mentioned, you know, poking UI, so like I can go ahead and poke, so that's like, it's got like a nice little effect there. You can move these menus. So what's nice here is like as I'm turning it, it's like turning to face me, so that's like another little script we got in there included.
Is it what we call the sunflower effect? It's always looking at you.
Yeah, we call it the lazy follow, but
nice.
So the lazy follow is gonna do that for you. So yeah, it's a little tutorial here showing, walk you through the template. So I was showing you all some of the different pieces here. So this is nice in headset tutorials, pretty nice, showing you the different game object, what's going on, what's grabbing an object. So I was mentioning you can grab this object, so you can grab it like this and pull it around. You can see like yeah, I see that. Yeah.
That's the lack of mixed reality here.
It was a VR demo. We got a mixed reality template as well. It's not updated just yet, but it's coming along.
Awesome.
It does support Unity 2022.3 though. You're able to grab that if you want and try that out, and supports hand tracking. So so grabbing objects around, moving around, you can throw these objects up in the sky, which is pretty nice. Fling things around. You know, like this nice motion is just really easy to grab things. And what's good is I can throw things and then grab them, because we use something called cone casting. So it's not just like a raycast. If it's just a raycast, I wouldn't be able to like hover things until I was like straight over it. But because it's like far away, I just lost it. I'm sorry. My headset got stuck. But that was a little demo there. So I think it's a good little tour. Does anyone have other questions there before I continue on pass this along? Anything in particular we want to dive into in the editor?
I guess one other thing to note too, while we're standing here, is all the UI, if you're not familiar with XRI and the UI, it's just Canvas. So if you're familiar with the Unity Canvas system, it just works with Canvas, which is super nice for anybody who's doing UI development. In the past, I've made my own custom XR solutions, and they don't use Canvas, and it's a huge headache. So being able just to leverage the existing tools and workflows that you already know, it's a huge win.
Picking objects is really
selecting canvas objects can be very tricky. That's for sure.
Okay, let's look at that canvas, how it's set up. That's actually a good point, Joe. So if you do want to set up a regular canvas, like the actual stuff in it, that's no problem. You can just use a normal canvas stuff. What you do want to make sure though is that you use the right raycaster. So the way that we interact with stuff and we pass input devices through is with this track device raycaster here. And what this is doing is that it's basically going through, it's extending the raycast system so that we can do 3D raycast through. So it'll take the like input data from the raycaster, the near far interactor, and the poke data, and it will like, you know, interact with objects that way. And another thing you need in your scene as well, if you're going to be doing UI, is it on this one? I'm actually not sure where we put it in the scene, but I'll show you in the scene just to give you an idea. So we've got the event system here. So the XR UI input module, this is what like passes the inputs, the input events through the input system here. So you'll need those two pieces there. So you got like the event system, which is what I was mentioning, is the one we don't really control, that powers normal UI. The input module extends the normal input module. It lets you put all of our input actions into it. And then there was that raycaster in there that lets you interact with objects. So with those pieces in place, you can interact with any UI canvas. Yeah.
And if you don't have that event system in scene, which might be what you're seeing here, it will auto-generate it on start, which is nice.
Yeah. Even I think though that like it might generate the like not VR version though. I might be mistaken though. I'd have to confirm. Don't want to misinduce people, but in general, you're better off to just set things up in the scene for yourself at a time. And yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I mean, this is a little tour here. I can show a little bit about like the hands demo scene as well, the hand setup, because that's something a lot of folks are generally interested as well. And so hands, the rig here is a little bit more complex. And the reason for that is that, we got, a lot of stuff going on in this to be able to switch between hands and controllers. One thing that is coming down the pipe is something called the hand interaction profile, and that will allow us to simplify this to some extent. The main goal of that is, so it's a new OpenXR extension. I was able to help co-author that a few years ago, and it's finally been like widely adopted. So every vendor is like slowly adopting it. It's really nice spec. The main goal of it is to really like think about hand and controller interoperability. So if you've built a VR app for controllers, you'll notice like there's a lot of like different inputs on here. Like you got your sticks, you got your buttons, you got all these different grips, you got haptics, you got things in there that like hands just don't have. And you got a lot more precision as well. But hands, like there's different poses. You got like an aim pose, you got a grip pose, there's a pinch pose, there's different things in there. And we want to make sure that there's like an equivalent for both hands and controllers. So like you see like all of our controllers in XRI, like they have this little nub at the end of it. And the point of that is so that it's like a little poke point, and that's going to be representative of your index finger when you're using hand tracking. So you can see there's different poses here. And one of the really nice things with XRI 3 is that it makes like adding these different poses really simple. So before we needed this whole like controller object, now you just have your pose, but your track pose driver, and you can you write your own script if you want to drive a pose your own way. Like that's totally up to you.
We have some folks in the comment asking about AR. Obviously, this is very focused on VR and MR right now.
Yeah.
Does XRI support AR and held devices?
It does, yeah. So we have the mixed reality template. I don't have this open at the moment, so I won't be able to show you all, but the mixed reality template uses the same hands origins rig. It adds AR Foundation, which is supported on many platforms now, including MetaQuest, and you'll be able to use AR Foundation as well on Vision Pro and HoloLens and Magic Leap. And what's great with that is that you can then build your app targeting that, and you'll need to add a MetaQuest Meta OpenXR feature package. So let's like look through and find it. So Meta, go through Unity registry. So Meta OpenXR. Am I gonna find it? Oh, it's not finding it. Search for Meta. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Cool. So this package here is gonna basically implement the missing pieces for if you're using MetaQuest to be able to like pull in all of the AR Foundation plugs to work with that. And then with that, you can add there's a component in your scene you're going to add that is for the camera to be able to like track that. And you want to set your actual camera's clearing color to black. That's an important thing that you want to do.
Eric, you should see the chat, the amount of people that said, yes, hands.
Yes, that's great.
They went, yes, hands.
So this is actually an important thing if you're not familiar with Unity is the background type. So what in computer graphics, like there's a thing where at the end of the frame you're going to clear out the color. You're going to clear out, and you can clear it out with either the skybox or the volume. So it's like a baseline color that like things get built off of. And when you're using AR, you want to use a solid color and set that to black. And what that's going to tell the renderer with 0 alpha is that when you're rendering, so you're not going to render the skybox anymore. You're gonna render the pass-through layer, and that's gonna let you just like render everything on top of that. So that's one of the key things if you're building for AR. Yeah. So let's go changes to that. Yeah, let's see if I can open this scene up. Let's see if we can run that. Hopefully I'm still
real live demo here. All right.
If it works. Let's try that. Is it gonna be? Yeah. I don't think it's working. That's a shame. Okay. Well,
It's okay.
it happens. Live demos are tough. I'm glad I got a few moments with the other one. So
Yeah.
there we go.
We'll get a lot
yeah,
of in Joe's section.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
Mm.
I'll take a moment though just to go through a little bit of the quirks with hands. So one of the things that is really tricky with hand tracking is like a noise. So most hand tracking systems they don't work quite like controllers where you're like getting controller update pose updates like a bunch of times, like basically like once a frame or more than once a frame. You're getting hand tracking updates probably like half as often as you're getting visual updates, and because of that, like we gotta like they're like the systems will do extrapolation. So based on your motion, they'll like predict where your hand's going to be, and that introduces noise. So your hand tends to jitter a little bit. And so one thing we thought about with the hands system is basically having this like post processor. So and I know the Meta SDK implements this as well. And what this does is basically when the hand data comes through the hand subsystem, which I'll explain in a bit actually how that's set up. You got the ability to filter through all of the joints, and you're able to just move the root pose to like stabilize it. So what this is doing is just stabilizing the root pose of the hand, so that as you're moving, it will like avoid like minor jitter. And if you're in the editor, you'll notice a little bit, but on device, like you get a little less latency. It really smooths things out. So if you keep your hand still, it's not gonna like shake. It's just gonna stay still, and that's like thanks to this. So if you don't like this, you can remove it. But what's nice with the post processor as well is that you can actually like you can have multiple of them, but like you can use that to change how the input system reads the data coming through it. So if you're building a hand like physics app, you can override what the hand is doing and based on physics. So say you have like a physics model and you're casting through the scene and you're like, oh, the hand's gonna rub into this wall or like bump into this. You can say, okay, well, it's a collision event, so I don't want the hand to go through that. You can use that data to then write your post processor so that like your hand, the hand visual, when it goes through all the joints, they're gonna stay stuck behind the wall, so they won't go through it. And so that's like a good way to do that. It's good interaction. We don't have a demo of that sample, but like that's how if you wanted to build that, that's how I would go about it.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you a lot, Eric. I feel like we should probably move to Joe's part
Yeah,
now. But
absolutely,
this was
absolutely.
so great. I think you showed a lot of different examples here, and
That's
I
great.
learned a lot personally. So hopefully the team
I'm glad.
too.
Glad to
Yeah, it's
hear.
been really valuable.
All right.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Well, Joe's got some great stuff to share as well, so I'm excited.
I
to hear
do.
some of that.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited to dive into it.
And we have a
We're gonna-
surprise, so someone is waiting.
I think we're gonna show a little video, some background B-roll of the VR multiplayer template. So let's just jump right into it, huh? All right. So first off, what's up, creators? Today I am so thrilled to show you all a high-level overview of Unity's VR multiplayer template. This template is packed with everything you need to start making VR multiplayer games, with networked interactables, networked avatars, voice chat lobbies, and so much more. Our goal is to make it as streamlined as possible so you can start building your games quickly and seamlessly. At its core, this template serves as the glue code between the XR Interaction Toolkit, Netcode for Game Objects, and Unity Gaming Services. And yeah, before you even ask, this is built with XRI 3, leveraging all of the amazing features that Eric just talked about. So we're really, really excited for you all to jump in there. So as a lifelong game dev and someone who's been professionally making games for the last decade, I absolutely understand how difficult it is to actually make and ship games. Then when you add in both VR and multiplayer, there's just so many settings and checkboxes that you need to go through and validate. That barrier to entry can seem, especially for new devs, daunting is probably an understatement. It can be tough. But fear not, it's not all doom and gloom. The VR multiplayer template comes pre-installed with all the packages and settings that you need to immediately deploy a VR multiplayer experience to your audience. Unity Cloud will automatically link your project ID when creating a new app from the Unity Hub, and this process just alone makes it so much easier. I can't even explain how much easier it is. Other third-party solutions can often feel convoluted. They can pose quite a few barriers and never really feel properly integrated. And typically this is in no way a fault to any third-party developers. It's just one of the limitations of being a third party, really. Now, I don't want this to sound like I'm throwing shade or anything like that. I have active personal projects that use third-party solutions for various reasons. But to be totally honest, the setup process always really sucks. And for new users, it can pose such a large barrier that sometimes they don't even get to the fun part, which is actually making the games, right? We all love that. For example, a typical new project, it's something sort of like this. First, you need to choose your networking solution. Then you need to go to their website. And if you don't already have an account, then you need to create an account. Once you log into their website, you have to make a new app with their backend service, and it'll generate some kind of app ID or string that you can plug in. Then you need to go back into Unity and install their Unity package from hopefully the asset store or the package manager, although sometimes it can be significantly more complicated. Then once that package installs, then you have to navigate through the package wizards and all the links to link that app ID that was generated. And then you need to go and configure your settings appropriately for the specific use case which you're targeting, which if you're watching this live stream, it's probably XR. And that's just to set up the dev environment. That's not even making any of the games. It's wild to me that this is the standard and we still jump through these hoops every single day. I mean, I still jump through these hoops every single day. In it together, I guess, right? Fortunately, the VR multiplayer template does all of this setup and configuration automatically. By utilizing relay, lobby, and authentication, this template allows you to immediately connect to anyone, anywhere, right out of the box, with the scalability and power of Unity gaming services. By simply just selecting the template in Unity Hub, you can dive into the multiplayer world without the hassle of downloading external packages or generating and linking these app IDs and going through all these different dashboards and websites and third-party apps. And it's just there. And for those who do want that deeper look into their CCU, their bandwidth usage, any of their metrics, Unity Cloud has you covered. You simply just log in to cloud.unity.com. All your created apps will just be right there in your dashboard. It always made more sense to me that project creation should trigger the dashboard update, not populating an app in the dashboard to then bring it in engine. It always seems backwards. And additionally, since you're using a template, your project will start out pre-configured with the optimal settings. It'll be loaded with examples to get you up and running immediately. Supported by Unity for Unity developers, the VR multiplayer template promises continued long-term support for all your multiplayer experiences. A few of the examples you'll find in the multiplayer template include a multitude of networked interactable objects, customizable networked avatars, networked hand tracking. My personal favorite, we have a networked music player that showcases fully networked UI interactions using the Canvas UI, and it also synchronizes the music across the network, so you never miss the beat. A network message board to showcase the new XRI keyboard, as well as sending and storing persistent messages across the network. We also have an example for network socket interactions. We have networked voice chat that's powered by Vivox. We have a working lobby system to show you how to connect and create rooms. Fully functional options menu that can easily be updated or changed to fit the needs of whatever your specific application might be. We also created 3 different mini games to showcase different interactions with XRI. I believe we're seeing one right now, which we call Whack-A-Pig. It's like whack-a-mole, but in VR, essentially. And our goal is just to give you a huge head start with development and show how XRI, NGO, and UGS can all work together to make excellent apps. When we originally built the VR multiplayer template, we started with the motto, create, distribute, and connect. And we truly, truly believe that the entire process should just be that simple. You just create the project from the template, make the build. Then you distribute that build to your audience, either manually or using some service. And then you connect to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Like I said earlier, game development is really, really difficult. And at Unity, we take so much pride in enabling developers any way we can to make the best experiences in the world. Now, we're going to jump over to a quick video that shows the entire end-to-end process needed to create a project and get connected. It's not long, I promise. In this video, you'll see me creating a new project with the VR multiplayer template, swapping my build target to Android, and then making a build. Okay, and here we have it. And once that's done, you'll see a build getting generated. And now here it goes. It's building, and this is not in real time. I wish it was, but it does take some time. I think the first time we made the build, it took somewhere around 20-ish minutes, but subsequent builds are significantly faster. For anyone who's familiar with Unity development, it's pretty common. So when you see this build,
just a quick note on that. If you turn off different graphics APIs, it helps a lot with speeding things up. Sorry, I don't want to speed this through, but yes,
very true, very true. By default, we are using Vulkan as our standard, but it's you can also use OpenGL, and like Eric said, you can configure some of those options to make it a little bit faster. So that video ends on the build being created, and I've taken that build and I've given it to our lead designer for the VR multiplayer template, Javier. And Javier, I hope, has installed that build onto his headset, and he's going to launch from I'm not going to dox Javier, but it's not like a LAN connection. He's somewhere not super far away, but definitely far away. And we're just going to show in real time. So if we want to swap to a screen share, I will go ahead and give a quick overview of the template. So here we are, we're in the template. The first thing you're going to notice when the template opens up is you get a welcome dialog, and that's just going to validate that your Unity project ID is set correctly and your Vivox credentials are also set correctly. And the next thing you'll notice is you have this little tutorial tabs on the side. I highly recommend everyone go through these. We have a quick little overview for making sure your gaming services are configured properly. We have
I love those. It's like a checklist.
Yeah. Oh, it's super nice. And as you complete it, the checklist goes from not being green to being green to let you know that you've actually completed that step, which is really nice.
Get some dopamine. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. We're all game developers at heart. We know what people want. There's additional resources as well if you want to dive deeper into XRI, NGO, or UGS. These will all link to forums and Discord channels and everything you need. Bug reports, template feedbacks, you name it, it's all there. So now, hopefully we've given enough time for Javier to be able to launch a game. It's quick, don't think it takes a long time. And we're gonna go ahead and join him. Let's close out these windows and make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. The other thing, as I promised, we are going to enable the XR device simulator. So in XRI settings resources, you'll have the XR device simulator settings. So we click on this, open it up, and all we need to do is checkbox, and we have a fully working VR simulator. So let's launch it.
That's
let's
amazing.
just see.
So while you were doing all of that, Joe, I got spammed on the chat with the amount of people saying, "Yo, Unity multiplayer, yes!" And
Yes.
so we actually broke a record on live audience and live commentary. I got an achievement on the amount of comments we get.
Wow.
Let's go.
Thanks, audience. Let's do this.
We're
keep
so
going.
excited that VR is truly a first-class citizen in Unity now. There has been so many years in the past where that hasn't been the case. And as I said, I've been making games for a very long time, and I've been using Unity for a large amount of that time. And not having that proper networking solution support has always been a huge pain point. And like I said, the third parties, they do a great job to fill in the gaps where needed. But being able to have this in-house solution that just works out of the box is so nice. And I can't wait for everybody just to be able to jump in and just be able to start playing around with it and making stuff. And we seriously cannot wait to see what you all make. So here we are in the sample scene. The first thing you're going to notice is we have a little video on the side that just gives you like a quick rundown of controls and how the general flow and layout works in the VR multiplayer template. But let's go ahead and let's teleport forward here with this little button. You're going to get a quick little view. You'll probably see my mouth moving in real time just to show you the microphones that are working. And you can set your name if you want. You can also randomize whatever color you want to be. And this is all built to be really extensible. So if you want to add on hats or change your faceplate or change skin tone or anything you want, it should be pretty easy for you to build upon that. So let's hit confirm and let's go ahead and see. So we have, let's back up a little bit. Hopefully you can all see. We have a couple options when you first jump in. You have the ability to enter a room code, which is a unique 6-digit string that you can just plug in. One of the nice things about room code is people can create rooms and they can flag them as private. And as long as you know the room code, you can still join those rooms, even if they are flagged as private. So it works as a really great way. If you know you want to make a session, you want just specific people to join you, you don't want randos
Just
coming
like
in.
best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Best friends code. The next option down is you have quick join. And what quick join will do is a few different things depending on context. If there's no currently created games or no openly available games, it'll just create one out of default. And if there is an open and available game, it'll just automatically join that game that already exists. So Let's Dev is right here. Looks like there's 1 player out of the
Ooh.
maximum currently allotted 20. Again, when you go to create a room, you can define how many players you want. You can define if you want it to be private or not, and you can also enter in the specific room names. And that'll populate right here on this board. So the moment of truth, let's go ahead and just jump in and let's just hope it all works live on a demo.
So there's someone waiting in this room for us, is there?
We're on. We are now connected. So this is Javier. He is the
Thanks for waiting,
he is the
Javier.
design lead for the VR multiplayer template. And as you can see, it's all real-time interactions. And like I said, I'm not going to dox Javier, but it's a decently far connection that we're doing. So there's no trickery or hidden logic or anything like that. It just
Getting
works.
spammed
Which is
with emojis right now.
He's really happy that we're there.
I
Like,
hope you can
he's
see that.
dancing around. Hi, Javier.
Let's go.
Yeah, so again, one of the really great things that we have just a ton of samples that are just packed in here. And you'll notice that we have hand tracking that just works right out of the box. Networked hand tracking. Javier can probably make hand gestures. Don't go too wild with it. Let's keep it PC. And just a whole bunch of options. Like I said, we have mini games over off in these far corners. We have this, like I said, my personal favorite was the music player that we have right here, and that just synchronizes music, which is awesome. I'm sure people have played many different VR games where you jump into the game and people are hearing different sounds, or maybe it's the same song, but it's not at the same time, and it's all just not quite synced up. And it's the small things to me that I think make a big difference. So being able to jump into a room and immediately hear where the track is at, when the track is at, and it all just syncs off the bat is awesome. And again, it also shows fully networked UI, so I can go and I can increase the volume, and that will update on Javier's end. And Javier can go and move the volume as well, and it'll update on my end. And it just works, which is one of the great and magic parts of the VR multiplayer template. And that's one of the things that we wanted to give to you, a template that just works, right? We don't need you to have to deal with all these hoops. You just need to click create project from template, and then you just make a build and you give it to anybody, and like I said, it just works. So that's where we're at. We're super excited to be showing everybody the template. There's a bunch of other options in here, a bunch of other examples we can dive into, and that's about it. Maybe we jump back to the video and we can do some Q&A.
Just want to say, Joe and Javier have been working on this template for many months now, and it's been a labor of love by them. They're doing weekly tests. Joe's been very, just so gung-ho about making sure that we battle test this thing so hard. And so the attention to detail is insane. So lots of feedback's been going through. So we're really excited for y'all to be able to play with it.
Okay, we have to give a shout out to Joe's team and everyone else that has been working on this. I agree. I joined Unity 3 years ago, and one of my first tasks was making those UI elements. I've changed jobs since, and now this is out and people can play with it. This is fantastic.
Nice. Yay.
I tried to make a VR multiplayer stuff using Netcode for Game Objects last year before this template was out. So yeah, like this template is amazing. Like
Very
speaking
welcomed.
from experience of doing that without a template, like it was a bit of a process. This is incredible. The fact that you get all this jam-packed stuff in it, like a music player, mini games.
Is this Christmas?
All this UI. It's honestly, this is like Christmas for me. I'm so excited about this template.
Yeah. And remember, it's not out yet. We are scheduled to release by the end of the year, but it is definitely coming soon. So stay tuned.
Hey.
It'll be here
Battle
before you know
tested
it.
That just
thoroughly.
answered 40 questions. Perfect.
Yeah. Sorry.
And like I said, I've been doing game dev for many years, and a core focus of that has been in VR multiplayer. So I understand firsthand the difficulties and the troubles that you have to go through, and all these hoops, like I was talking about before, that you have to jump through just to connect to somebody else. You can do LAN stuff pretty easily. If you have another person and you're connecting directly to them, there's not a lot of hoops you need to jump through, but it can still be kind of a pain. But leveraging UGS, things like Relay and Lobby, it just makes it so easy, and it's all in-house, and it all just works, which is my favorite part. It's also supported by Unity, so it's going to be something that we're going to continue to develop on, and it's going to continue getting richer and better, and the experience is just going to get improved over time. And we love hearing your feedback from the community. So if there's ever any features that you would like or anything, just give us a shout. Let us know what you want us to change. Let us know what you want to see, and let us know what you want, and we'll work our best to incorporate it, if it makes sense. Of course.
Wow.
Yeah. So everyone, please keep a lookout on all of our, Unity's socials and different channels, on the roadmap, on the forums, and then I'm sure we'll put out a lot of announcements when the template is ready to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, cheers.
And thanks
a lot
all.
for that, Joe.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward. Looking forward to seeing what people make with it. Again, I think that's my personal favorite thing about being at Unity is we're getting to make incredible tools and getting to see what people make with them. I mean, I'm also a game developer in my free time, so I utilize these tools too. So there's a little bit of cross pollination, if you will. But
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
just
we're
before we move to the very, very awaited session part about WWDC that Antonia is about to talk to, I have a few questions for you, Joe.
Yeah.
That were just spamming us right now.
let's jump
People
into
are
it.
Super excited about this. And so some people were asking, is this, for example, multiplayer up to how many people?
That's really going to depend on your personal use case. We've tested pretty consistently with between 10 and 15, and it runs great. We have all these interactables that are here. They're all networked interactables. You can spawn them in. We spawned in hundreds. They're all GPU instanced, so they're super, super efficient. And we've had it with, again, well over 10 people, hundreds of interactables running great on a Quest 2. So keep that in mind. That's kind of our min spec target that we're making sure it runs really well for. And again, it's really going to depend. This is a template, so we're expecting you to all build on top of it, right? And that's really going to depend on how much you incorporate, right? If you make your player avatars, 200,000 polygons, you're probably not going to be able to have as many players as if you used a really low resolution model. So it's
Awesome.
really just going to depend on your own personal setup.
Another question was about, I would say, multi-platform. So someone was like, oh, can we connect with PC? And then someone else in VR, someone else in AR.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Woo.
OpenXR. It's all built on OpenXR. So if your platform supports OpenXR, you're good to go. We run our regular tests primarily with the Quest ecosystem, just because it's super easy to test on. But we have people who run on Vives. Vive ones aren't the best, and they're kind of phased out, but it does work. We have people that use Index and Knuckles controllers. We have people that use the Pimax system, and that works. So ultimately, we're working to make sure we support anything on OpenXR, and that's the idea. We are looking into support for Vision OS. Currently the platform should work on Vision OS. There is a dependent SDK solution for Vivox that's a specific Vivox solution that uses Vision OS. So if you know that's something you're going to be targeting, you're going to need to install that, because by default it probably won't ship with the template.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'll make a note on Vision OS as well. Like, as I worked on the Vision OS sample, it does take a little bit of customization to make sure the app is like properly leveraging the platform. We do have some samples for fully immersive VR showing that for Vision OS as well. Doesn't ship with XRI, it ships with the Vision OS package. But they're still working on updating to XRI 3 as well. So there's still some work to be done in terms of closing the loop there, making sure that works well. But yeah, as Joe mentioned, like he's primarily talking about OpenXR, but really like if you can run XRI, like if you can run this scene, like you can customize the inputs, you can make sure that it all runs through, and there's not really a constraint on the platform. Like anywhere that we like the UGS services go, like in theory, like you should be able to deploy this. So yeah, with enough work, we promised OpenXR. You can't promise everything. Yeah. I will say, and this is kind of a side note and very tangentially, I did build an Android controller doing some testing to have like a standalone Android build phone, and that was very easy. So we're not going to ship with that, but if that's something that someone wanted to leverage, is the ability to connect like an Android phone into the VR with VR players, it does work. It will take a little bit of work, but it's very not. I would not consider it a lot of work at all.
Yeah, and you're seeing the video too, the nice spatial keyboard that Kevin on our team worked on. So that was another labor of love as well, like making through making sure that all works with poke and controllers with Raise. So very nice if you're looking into having text input without having to rely on system level keyboards.
Yeah, and I will say that's one of the huge benefits of making this VR multiplayer template is it's really expanded our use case for what we want to be able to support. I mean, the keyboard's a perfect example of something that we didn't have, but how are you going to make a multiplayer game without text input, right? You're going to need to be able to type in, at the very least, your name or the room name that you want to make. So it ended up becoming this necessity that we absolutely needed, and we were able to roll it directly into XRI, and now it's a fully supported feature.
Yeah, so it ships as one of the package samples, so you can grab it yourself separately.
Yeah. Thanks for the hard work, everyone, and for showing us this. Shall we, Antonia? It's your time to
Yeah,
shine.
sure. So I don't have any slides or anything. I'm just going to be sort of talking through a little bit of a recap. So Monday was a very exciting day in the world of XR, especially for those of you interested in developing for Apple devices, because it was WWDC. And there were lots of different announcements. How many people watched it? Did anyone else here watch it? It wasn't just me.
definitely.
I know. Yeah, all of us. Okay.
I was
I know
stuck
you
to my
didn't.
TV,
Yeah. I mean,
especially
same.
because of the AI side.
Yeah.
We had an
there was a-
internal watch party from our XR team, so we all got to watch it together. It was
I
really
was
nice, like a little
excited.
Zoom party. Yeah, it was cool.
I feel
I'll make sure
offended
next
that I
time.
wasn't invited. Yeah, please. No, I'm in a different time zone, so it's a bit tricky. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was super exciting. Lots of different announcements about all different devices. There were AI announcements, especially the latter half of WWDC. There were iOS announcements, Mac, iPad, phone. But the part I'm going to talk about, this being an XR live stream, is really about the visionOS 2 announcement. So visionOS now is coming out with visionOS 2, so the kind of first major update or new version of the visionOS platform. So this is the operating system for the Apple Vision Pro, which is Apple's XR, VR, or spatial computing headset, I should say, to be correct. So what's new in visionOS 2? I'll do this partly from memory, and then I've got a list. I'll just check that I haven't missed out anything egregious at the end. One of the things I'm excited about, I don't know how many people here have an Apple Vision Pro and have used it. I've been using mine quite a lot, both for professional reasons and also just watching movies on it, things like that. So on visionOS 1, in order to access the home view, which is to bring up all your applications, you would have to kind of look upwards, and there's a drop-down menu. You would look at it with your eye gaze and then tap with your hand. If anyone's not familiar with Apple Vision Pro, you actually don't have to reach out your hand. You can leave it in your lap or by your side, which is really comfortable. And your eye gaze kind of directs what you're selecting, and then you just tap with your hand. So it's called a spatial tap gesture. So currently you'd bring up the home view by sort of looking up and then tapping with your fingers. That can get a little tiring for your eyes when you use the device a lot, especially if you do a lot of, I don't know, either checking your battery or Wi-Fi, or I do a lot of recording of the device for tutorials, and you access that via the control center. So now they've introduced a new gesture. You can access the home view by just turning your hand upwards. I'll try not to knock my microphone while I gesticulate. And you can access the control center by just popping your palm downwards. So that is super comfortable, a good quality of life update, which I'm looking forward to. So you can easily set the date and time and the volume. One of the updates is to do with photos. So you can previously you were able to take spatial photos or videos using an iPhone, and then you could view these in 3D stereoscopically on the Apple Vision Pro. So now they've introduced an AI-based feature where you can create spatial photos directly using your 2D photos from your library in the Photos app. So you just load up a 2D photo, and it will use AI to kind of add stereoscopy or render a texture for each eye, and it will add depth to the photo so you can kind of see it in 3D, which is really cool. I'm very excited to try it out. You can also then,
effect is nice.
if my camera just died for a
You're
second
back,
there,
you're
I'm
back.
not sure what happened.
You were in mixed reality for a second.
Yeah, I'm actually a persona. This is not really me. This
Yeah.
is my Apple persona. Actually, my Apple persona is like, yeah. I
AI
probably-
Tonya. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can share play your photos. You can have a FaceTime call with your friends or family. You can all share and interact with spatial photos, videos, and panoramas, which is really nice if you have other friends with Apple Vision Pro. One update that I'm excited about is ultra-wide displays. So visionOS 2 allows you to share your Mac to your Apple Vision Pro, not just in the standard 16:9 4K display, but you can have a large or an ultra-wide display. So you get loads of virtual screen space to move things around, which is really nice. If anyone is interested in capturing spatial video but doesn't have an iPhone or wants to get something a little bit more even more high resolution and more cinematic, one of the announcements was that Canon is making a new lens for its EOS R7 camera, which is tailor-made for creating spatial video for the Vision Pro headset.
Oh.
DSLR camera to capture this spatial video and then view that on the Apple Vision Pro, which is
On
a
top
really
of
interesting
what the
collaboration.
iPhone 15 can do.
Exactly. And you can also do that with your iPhone 15. So yeah, I'm super excited to see what cinematographers and filmographers create with that. In terms of volumetric APIs, so especially for the game devs listening, this is kind of a very relevant one. There's a few, I guess, for context. When you develop for Apple Vision Pro, there's a few ways you can do it. You can create 2D windowed content, so that appears like a flat screen kind of floating in the space. You can have mixed reality content where pass-through is on, so you can see the world around you, and that can be bounded inside a volume, so it's kind of constrained within a cube and you can place that around your space, or it can be unbounded, so the content is all around you in the mixed reality space. And then you also have VR mode, where it acts like a typical VR headset where pass-through mode is not on. So as a note for developers, you don't switch between those modes. You can't kind of primarily create a VR app and then halfway through switch on the pass-through cameras and transition to XR. It's not really the intended use. And there's privacy things to touch on, but I'll touch on that a little bit later.
Little parenthesis, Antonia.
Yes.
Breaking news that just came in. And I know you don't have your Slack open, so I'm going to share it. Dan said in our team that we have discussions update with a forum link, which we just put in the comments right now. And basically, it's our upcoming plans to support Vision OS 2. So there's a lot of information over there that people will be able to read after. But please continue with the information you have.
Brilliant. Thank you for that so much. So please do check out that link for even more information about all of our upcoming support. Forgot where I was at. So yes, so you can create content that exists inside a volume. So if you're creating mixed reality content for Apple Vision Pro, it can be bounded to a cubic volume, or it can be kind of spread all around the space, which is called bounded and unbounded mode. With this bounded mode, something that's very unique about spatial computing in the Apple Vision Pro is you can have multiple applications running at the same time. So you could have Lego Builder's Journey running, you could have kind of puzzles, and then also be watching a movie at the same time and also be answering emails. So it really is a kind of generalized computing environment rather than just a dedicated kind of gaming console. So one thing you can now do with new volumetric APIs in Vision OS 2 is resize volumes in the shared space using the SwiftUI scene modifier. You can create volumes that have a fixed or a dynamic scale. So you can have it such that when the 3D object moves away from the user, it appears constant in size, or you could have it get smaller and act kind of in tune with perspective. There's a new Tabletop Kit API. So that is for developers to create board games that they can play on the Vision Pro. So for example, you could project a game onto a table rather than needing to rely on having a box with lots of tiny parts and that you might lose. In terms of enterprise APIs, there's a lot of exciting news there. So there are new APIs for Vision OS 2 with enhanced sensor access. This is for enterprise APIs for business use only. And they give you increased control. One thing they give you access to, which is new, is direct access to the main camera feed, which previously wasn't allowed. So you have this high fidelity view around the user, and you can now use that information in your app and process it on device using a machine learning model. So for example, you can have a user looking at, let's say an enterprise use case, parts on a production line, and you can leverage machine learning to recognize those objects if you've pre-specified what they are, and then bring up relevant information, which I think is going to be really exciting. I think we'll see some very relevant and important use cases for that. You have direct access to the user's view. So previously this was only enabled for one application, which is FaceTime, but now developers are able to create their own solutions that share both the apps that the user has open and their own camera feed. So that'll be a big deal for things like remote assistance in industry.
And I know that on that front, there is a lot of people that have been testing also like putting 3D objects and having like real-time shading, reflecting the HDRI coming from the camera feed, but they couldn't tap into that before. So this is a huge deal.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, there's a lot of improvements to things. So as I mentioned, object recognition, you can do spatial barcode scanning as well. So you can have barcode and QR code formats. You could scan real life objects. So equipment or inventory or stock to take action.
Oh yeah, because it has a lot of LiDAR scans on top of it.
Exactly. So now you can leverage all of that. You basically have a lot more sensor access than you did before for enterprise APIs, which is fantastic. I know that was quite a kind of blocker for some people before. In terms of input, so this is for all developers, not just enterprise API, you can now decide if you want the user's hands to appear in front of or behind the digital content. Before it was purely depth-based. Planes can be detected in all orientations, and you can anchor objects on surfaces in your surroundings. So that's really nice. I've seen a couple of videos of people kind of anchoring models to tables, to chairs, and it really gives it that sense of real world placement and context. It already comes with grounding shadows that came with Vision OS 1. So it really has a sense of realism and kind of context and grounding in the world. Now, there's a couple of things they actually didn't mention at WWDC, which I'm still really excited about. So I dug through the kind of notes, the release notes to see what else is happening. So after the update arrives, which is in the fall, you'll be able to see a Magic Keyboard while you're working in a virtual environment. You can use any Bluetooth mouse you want, and you can also rearrange your home screen icons, which is also now true on the iPhone or iPad, which I think is a much awaited update. Something that is very important if you intend to let other people use your Vision Pro is that previously, when you put it into guest mode, your guest had to do setup every time, but now it will save their eye and hand setups, so they don't have to kind of adjust it for eyes. It's quite a simple setup. You actually just hold a button on top and it will kind of adjust to your interpupillary distance, the distance between your eyes, and then you kind
It's
of...
going to be super useful for conferences.
Yes, exactly. Sharing devices has suddenly become a lot easier. If you use Apple TV, there's now a 5-screen multi-view streaming mode, so you can kind of see different views. So if you're a sports fan, for example, you could see different views and have different screens.
Watch 5 NBA games at the same time.
Yeah, or maybe 5 views of the same one, or
Ooh, really cool.
Yeah, different angles of the same game. I think they presented that actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
I can think of a few use cases, but I definitely watch more than one video at once. And yeah, if you do watch videos on the web, on the note of videos, you can now break them out into free floating video players. That does make sense because YouTube and Netflix don't have dedicated apps for the Vision Pro yet. There are third-party apps like Juno and Supercut, but now you can just break out those web videos into free floating video players as well. So that's a really nice workflow. There's a couple of other small bits and pieces. So volumes now tilt to face you, so you can also use them while lying down. And on the subject of lying down, you can watch full screen videos in virtual environments. You can lie down and recenter them above you. So you can use your Vision Pro lying down, which I think is quite nice. If you don't like the virtual environments as well, you can now offload them, which you couldn't do before. The icons are still there, but you can make them not take up space on your device. And one of the most important announcements is a global release has been announced for the Apple Vision Pro. So currently it was only available in the US. The first countries to have access will be China mainland, Hong Kong, Japan and Singapore, where pre-order will be open on June 13th and the device will be available on June 28th. And then it's rolling out to Australia, Canada, France, Germany and the UK, where pre-orders will open on June 28th and availability will start on July the 12th. So it's nearly here, which I'm super excited about as someone in the UK. I do have one. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I had to get it from the US.
Hey,
so,
same. Eric has to work for Montreal as well.
Yeah, we've all out of necessity done that. But yeah, now it will be much, much easier. So
Awesome.
very
The journey
excited.
getting it through the borders is a pain, and if it breaks, like no support
not
at all.
recommend.
So
You all allegedly have one. Okay, allegedly.
And we allegedly have a
mine's not
different
hanging up.
app store account. Who knows?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Some
this was a
people may say I
jam-packed
have
list
one.
of amazing features and updates and quality of life improvement for developers. So really, really
Don't forget
cannot
Apple
wait to see that.
Pencil on Vision OS too, right?
Yes,
Apple
yes.
Pencil. That's
Yeah.
gonna be huge. We're finally getting controller support.
That's true. Yes, so we'll
Right?
have.
It is a thing in a sense.
That's true. Yeah. So there is now an Apple controller, Apple Pencil. I mean, it's still a hand tracking first device in terms of, let's say, XR interactions, but the fact that you can use kind of other controllers now is a big addition. There's a couple of other small things that aren't relevant necessarily to the developers that I've glossed over. So personas. I mean, I think this one is great, but personas now have more customization, more skin tone options, things like that. It's
Well,
not something that
diversity
you
is
can
always welcome. We're
customize,
never
but
gonna
yeah,
say no.
exactly. So I'm happy that there's more options available. Yeah. So I think that's a summary. Please do add anything if I've missed anything out. I've done it mostly from memory, so
yeah, thanks for that, Antonio.
I think I've got most of
Well
it.
done too. That was great from him.
Yeah. So again, just to remind people, we just put in the chat a link to access the discussions forum, which includes a link to the upcoming plans to support Vision OS 2 from Unity. So like, all the questions you might have, please go there, ask your questions over there. Our team is waiting for you.
Yes.
And there's probably a lot of answers already, so just click on the link.
Yeah, on that note, the teams are very hard at work on the next release. That's going to have a lot of new features that are going to help developers create immersive content. So things like multi-volume support, mode switching, and much more. And we will be providing compatibility with the latest version of Vision OS. So please do go to the Vision OS discussions page for details on the next release. And we'll keep that
Yay.
updated for you.
Amazing. So this was Amazing. We're getting towards the very end of this stream. One of our longest one, and I think that just shows the amount of cool content that you guys are able to share with us. Very glad to have been able to have all of you at the same time on stream. Thank you also to the audience for all the questions asked. And we have a bunch of cool resources and, learning and tips that we want to share right now. So anything that you in particular would like to share live before I start spamming the chat?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, we're very receptive to the forums. We're also on the Discord. The forum's a great place to keep track of issues, help other people find your problems as well. So please do use them. I know maybe on other packages or whatnot, the devs aren't always on top of it. Our team tries to really listen to feedback as well. And so if it's XR specific or XRI specifically, we're really on top of it. So please do use that. It's a great resource for having, like I said, helping others find your issues and helping us figure out what to improve as well. So
awesome. There you go. All the links are appearing right now. So you got the Unity website for spatial computing, Unity XR solutions page, Unity forums for XR, XR documentation, XRI toolkit documentation, XR courses to get started. I heard a lot of questions about that today. So there you go. And documentation for VR multiplayer as well. And as Joe said before, the multiplayer is coming later this year.
Sooner than you think.
There you go. Any last minute thought? Anything you want to share?
I just want to say thanks to everybody here. Thanks for everybody coming out and seeing what we have to offer. We're super excited to be getting these tools in your hands. We can't wait to see what you create with it. On behalf of Unity, we are so excited to see what people make. That's one of the best things about being at Unity is seeing the amazing, incredible creations that our community comes up with. And like Eric said, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're super receptive. We love getting feedback. We love trying to make the product as best as possible. And one of the greatest ways to do that is through your support and with your feedback. And so when we have that consistent feedback loop, it only is going to result in the best product possible.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you again. And the last thing I would say is that we're going to have a little break because people are going in PTO. But our next live stream is going to be, I think, on July 3rd at 12 p.m. And it's going to be Thomas Winkley, that you already know, that you've seen in previous live streams. It's going to be a Let's Play, I believe, a Game Jam X Place. So stay tuned and see you soon. And thank you again for joining.